Economic strength between Arizona and Mexico.
Import and export relationship with Mexico almost reaches $16 billion for the state. Huge.
An American company building parts south of the border.
Doing this business in Mexico, we want to be very competitive and we'll be competitive with the overseas.
Plus, what a dip in binational numbers means for trading partners. This is Arizona Week. Hello and thanks for joining us. We're in the San Carlos Industrial Park in Nogales, Sonora, about a 10-minute drive from the U.S.-Mexico border. And here you'll find American, European, and Asian companies with manufacturing plants. A healthy workforce is what Magnetic Metals found here back in the 1980s.
The company made its way here. It's based in New Jersey. It made its way here about 40 years ago, or over 40 years ago, initially starting in Agua Prieta, Sonora, and then moving here to Nogales. And they found their workforce that has worked greatly for us, and we've been here since.
What is it about this place that makes it perfect for your working conditions, your needs?
The people here are very hard-working people. They're very committed, and they feel comfortable. They make their own environment. The environment that we have here is very family-like environment, and the people, they're very hardworking. They're fast. They're used to working in fast-paced.
People get benefits here. They have a decent salary. You said about 130 pesos a day to start?
Yes, they start off at about 130, 140. They work their way up after 30 days, 90 days, and a year. And they also have lots of other benefits, bonuses, different bonuses. And they're pretty happy with the way they get the support from the company.
So you have more than 100 employees and you're planning to grow. That must be a good sign.
Yes, it is. We've been doing very well, very well. We don't have a lot of turnover. The people seem to be happy with what they're doing. We don't really have any issues with people not coming into work, having to go out there and look for more. There's actually, we need more people in Nogales because there is a lot. The industry is growing a lot.
This is an American company. Why can't this work be done or this workforce be found in the U.S.? What about this relationship with Sonora makes it ideal?
The relationship with Sonora makes it ideal because it also brings jobs into the U.S. Being in a border town is perfect because we're very close to the border, and the people come and go where it's the culture, that just makes this place work out here in Mexico.
One of the hats you wear, Lisa, is also with the Maquila Association that really monitors economics on both sides of the border.
That is correct.
How are you watching things unfold when it comes to what's happening in Washington and here in Arizona and Sonora? This is an industry that has existed for decades.
Yes, right now there seems to be a lot of worried people out there thinking, that this is going to change with everything that's going on in the United States right now with the NAFTA. We here are not really too worried about it. We don't think anything is going to change. If it does, we're going to continue to be here. We were here before the NAFTA, and the industry will be here after that.
So right now the peso, the value is not very strong.
Right.
Does that change or that challenge your bottom line here, and then the pay scales for some of these people we have here around us?
It challenges not for the company itself, for the people it does. So we try to find other options as how to help the people, and in a way where they don't feel, that loss of money coming into them. Because of course, they're no longer able to purchase the same amount of things they purchase in the U.S. when the peso goes down in value a lot.
Okay, thank you so much. You're the chief engineer, Sergio Miranda. Thank you for having us.
Right, thank you. Thank you for you to come into our plant and visit us. Yeah, our main product, is we do GFCIs. ground fault control interrupters, especially for the residential, commercial areas. But we do also a lot of industrial stuff for that.
So those pieces are really in all of our homes and our cars.
Yeah, pretty much. We have the GFCIs, AFCIs, in the house, which is required by law in the US and in Europe, and I think in Mexico.
You were telling me earlier that reset button that's in a lot of our homes on our outlets, the parts that are behind those buttons are made here.
Yes, yes, we make the small transformer, the little GFCI. And of course, there is electronics being added by your end customers, but our part make the principal function on the GFCI.
With some of these parts, you guys are making maybe 40 units a day, but then hundreds of units, it just depends?
That depends on the customer needs. We don't have limitations for those products, and regarding to the quantity, they could be 5,000, 10,000 pieces a week. It's dependent on our needs, is how we set up our production line to meet our customer needs.
You seem very proud of those little wiring systems. It looks like hard work. Can you kind of explain how that stuff works?
Well, that is very fine wire that we have. You need very skilled people, to accomplish those tasks. But we are doing here. We have been doing for years, and we have the experience here. Actually, these parts goes mounted into a little transformer that goes mounted into a battery charger for the automotive industry. This goes into the electric cars. Our customers, they make the charger stations that are mounted in the houses, so they can plug in and have the cars charged overnight.
You've been here, Sergio, for more than 20 years now?
I have been working with magnetic metal for more than 20 years. So.
Have you seen the inside of this plant change during that time?
Well, we have been, going through different products during those 20 years. The business changed, and you have to be, accommodating to the demands of our customers. This is one of the examples of parts that we make. This part in specific is used for the lighting system, like to control the lights in the stadiums. This part is we make like 10,000 a year, so we spread this over the years. But it's pretty much the volume that we do for these parts.
Lisa told us that you're going to be expanding, which means there's more work for you guys.
We are trying to make our magnetic cores, which are pretty much used in all our parts. So that would be very good for the region here, for the opportunity. There are not too many companies here to do that type of business. So doing this business in Mexico, we want to be very competitive, and we'll be competitive with the overseas, with Chinese, India, and other overseas manufacturers of this product.
What makes you guys competitive?
Well, actually right now we have the labor in Mexico. We have very skilled labor, which we are pretty much on the same price that the Chinese or Asia people know in labor. And we have the advantage of the exchange rates right now, which make Mexico attractive for that. And also the distance. Most of our customers are in US, so we have very, very quick turnaround in their demands, which not happen with China, or is more expensive not to bring products in a matter time.
For American, European, and Asian companies to open and then run a manufacturing plant in Mexico, it can be complex. But there are what are known as shelter services, companies that make it manageable. Javid LLC has been in operation in both the U.S. and Mexico for decades. Here's Richard Rubin.
Javid was formed 34 years ago. Our role is when a company wants to come to Mexico and they don't have an infrastructure, so they don't have an accounting department, a customs department, an IT department, and they don't want to entrust their entire business to a whole new staff, Javid sells them the administrative service. We're the legal entity. They come in with the knowledge of how to manufacture and quality and purchasing, and we handle HR, we get their product in and out, we do all the customs work for them, all the IT preparation, all the finances for them, and so they concentrate on their core, which is manufacturing. Our expertise is administrative services and being the legal entity. We know the community, we know all the players, we know the vendors, We're a certified maquila, which gets us special privileges, and it gives them peace of mind. So our job is to give them a soft landing when they come to Mexico.
How many businesses are you working with?
Currently we have 26 companies in 1.5 million square feet in 27 plants and over 3,000 employees.
And we're talking businesses from all over the world, or?
Businesses from Germany and Switzerland and Canada, mostly from the United States. 8 of our businesses are from Arizona.
Why do those businesses want to come to Nogales, Sonora?
Nogales is a very easy border, right? Even though Customs is a federal agency, it's just different. Right here, it's ambos Nogales. It's really true here. It's so easy to work here. The brokers probably went to school with some of the import specialists. I mean, it's a friendly environment. We're close to Tucson, which is a wonderful airport. They all like flying in and out of Tucson. The climate down here, we're at 7,000 feet. Today might be hot, but we're always at least 15 degrees cooler than the rest of Arizona.
Why can't this work be done in the United States?
Well, the companies had to make a choice, right? We work in a global market, and they had to make a choice to compete. And it was, do I go to China or Malaysia, or do I stay near shore in Mexico, where we're on the same time zone? We basically speak the same language. Numbers are numbers, good and bad. And it kept people employed in their factories. 40% of every dollar that goes from Mexico to the U.S. at cost is of U.S. origin. So it's creating jobs, and they didn't want to lose that, because if they went to China, that number, 40%, goes down to about 2%.
NAFTA seems to be in discussion. Maybe it's changing, maybe it's staying the same. The peso has lost some value. You represent a few boards in the U.S. and in Mexico. What does all this mean for you in this region?
Well, NAFTA's been around for 23 years. So I was here 10 years before NAFTA. And NAFTA, so we had different programs back then. NAFTA helped some industries. It helped the electronics industry, but in that case, they had to source their wire from the United States to be NAFTA qualified. But NAFTA, half of our businesses use NAFTA and half of them don't. NAFTA is a preferential trade agreement. It's not a free trade agreement. We wish it was free, but it's not. NAFTA's not going to go away. It's created $1.1 trillion in trade between Canada, US, and Mexico. NAFTA has been very beneficial in creating jobs on both sides of the border, which is what the intention was, right from the get-go with NAFTA. But there's a lot of rhetoric, well, there's going to be a border tax, or there's going to be this, or there's going to be that. We all live here. We've been living with NAFTA. We know that NAFTA has been beneficial to both countries, at least Mexico and the US, because that's what we're talking about. NAFTA is not going to go away. It could be modernized. There are parts of NAFTA that maybe should be modernized after 23 years. The security aspect of NAFTA should be modernized. Countries should cooperate. There should be more unified cargo inspection. But we don't see NAFTA going away.
If NAFTA modernizes, does that change the look and feel of maquilas like this one?
Absolutely not. There would be no change at all. Business would go on as normal.
A lot of us in the U.S. are watching this. We read the news, we watch all these discussions. Are we overreacting every time somebody says something?
Absolutely. The U.S. belongs to the World Trade Organization. The rules are the rules, right? Whether you pay duties or don't pay duties is dependent upon what is the commodity, where was it manufactured, and where is it going to. Nothing's ever going to change that. So all the talk of NAFTA seems to be unsubstantiated, right? We're just not, we're not seeing it. We're not panicking on our side of the border.
For 2/3 of U.S. states, Mexico is among the largest trading partner. The University of Arizona Eller College of Management tracks economic data, and a recent report shows a decline in a few areas. Among them, Arizona exports to Mexico dropped from $9 billion to about $8.2 billion. The drop in numbers, though, isn't concerning considering the fact that Mexico's currency has lost some of its value. Here's George Hammond, a professor with the University of Arizona Eller College of Management.
What we've seen over the past decade is very big increases in Arizona's exports to Mexico. They're up over 50% during the past decade in terms of merchandise exports. But during the same time, we've seen a really significant increase in the value of the US dollar versus the peso. And another way of saying that is that the peso has weakened significantly. The dollar is up roughly 44% during the past 3 years. And we think that's now having a big negative impact on our exports. Arizona's exports to Mexico fell just over 9% last year. And we think a chunk of that was driven by the fact that the dollar is so much stronger, the peso is much weaker.
It's sort of a double-edged sword, though, because sometimes it's good for Mexico, but it's bad for the U.S. and then vice versa. So how do you really put that data together?
Well, the way that we think about it is that as the dollar strengthens against the peso, that makes U.S. priced or dollar-priced goods and services more expensive to Mexicans. So as those goods and services here get more expensive to Mexicans, they purchase less of them. And we've been waiting for this to happen. It looks like it is occurring now. And it's happening nationally. U.S. exports to Mexico were down last year. Exports from Texas to Mexico were down last year. So it's not just Arizona that's feeling the impact of the stronger dollar.
Any of the indicators show that there's some challenges because of the discussions we're hearing out of Washington? Do the numbers fluctuate based on what Washington folks are actually saying or doing?
Where we've seen that most clearly is actually, again, in the value of the U.S. dollar. The dollar really spiked significantly right after the election. So the peso got a lot weaker, the dollar got a lot stronger versus the peso, and kept going up for a couple weeks and reached actually an all-time high versus the peso. Over the past month or so, the dollar has come down against the peso, and we're now basically back to where we were before the election happened. So some of the initial rhetoric was perceived very negatively, and I think things are settling down a little bit. But that's been the clearest sign that we've seen that the discussion out of Washington is having an impact. And we'll keep an eye for other impacts that may emerge as we go down the road.
That's common, though, because the markets need time to stabilize after an election.
Sure, you bet. But that's a particularly significant increase in the dollar versus the peso. We hadn't seen that previously.
Mexico is Arizona's trading partner ×4. Is that accurate?
That is true. Mexico is Arizona's largest merchandise export destination. We send about 40% of our merchandise exports to Mexico. The next largest is Canada, with about 10%. So it's a key destination.
We keep hearing there could be changes to NAFTA. Is there anything that you think people should watch for?
Well, I think the changes to NAFTA are something to keep an eye on. You know, NAFTA was signed a long time ago. It's probably time to revisit it and think about changes. You know, the economy is so different now than it was 20 or so years ago. It makes sense to revisit it. But I think overall, the NAFTA has had a net positive impact on the U.S. It's resulted in a more competitive, broader market area, including Mexico and Canada. And one thing to keep in mind is that you know, we want to make sure that the North America area, including Mexico and Canada, is competitive versus the rest of the world. That's really the key to focus on. We're trying to make our market as competitive as possible versus others in China and other competitors around the world.
The governments of Arizona and Sonora have labeled this area as a mega region, a system of economies supporting each other. At a recent binational summit, the governments agreed to continue collaborating with one another despite what's being talked about at the national level. I recently spoke with Juan Ciscomani. He's Governor Doug Ducey's senior advisor for regional and international affairs.
It's extremely important. Mexico is by far our #1 trading partner, ×4. So it's not even close for the second one. When we look at the trade that we do with Mexico and we break it down in exports and imports, over $8 billion is what we do in exports with Mexico, and just around $7.2 billion in imports. So we export more than we import. In this relationship, Arizona wins. And just to put it in perspective, Mexico trades more with Arizona than they do with the entire country of Germany. So we are a key partner for them as they are to us. So the mutual, the combined, I would say, import and export relationship with Mexico almost reaches $16 billion for the state. Huge. It's responsible for creating about 100,000 jobs directly here in the state of Arizona, plus the indirect jobs that it does as well. So the numbers prove it. This is an important relationship economically and trade and also cultural that we have with Mexico.
Some of the talking points that came out were the fact that regardless of what is happening on the national scale, it seems like Arizona and Mexico will continue to work together.
Yeah, we will continue this. We're not turning back. We will continue the course. This has been a priority for the governor since day one. His first international mission trip was to Mexico City 5-6 months after he was in office, and which is what opened the door to the kind of relationship we have now. At that point, Governor Pavlovich hadn't been elected yet. But as soon as she was elected, the governor gave her a call, and that started with a great relationship, which became a partnership and is now a friendship. And that kind of relationship that we enjoy, we're not going to turn back on. It's important for the state, but it's also important for our overall relationship. The governor always says this, he says, relationships matter. And the stronger we keep them, the better prepared we are to face the challenges. So the national environment and the national message that is going out there would affect us if we didn't have established relationships the way we do.
How does the governor handle, we have a Republican president who's not particularly enthused about the relationship with Mexico, a Republican governor who's pushing for it, so where is that balance?
Well, the governor is strong in believing in the role of governors in states, and each state sets their own tone with the relationship with Mexico, because we have the ability to trade with them directly, which is great. So the governor has been very strong on keeping a positive and open relationship with the White House, and at the same time, reassuring our friends in Mexico that Arizona is open for business. We are open. We want to continue this relationship, and we want to continue to attract companies, as we've been attracting them from California and other states that we're competing with. We want to make sure that our companies here in Arizona have the ability to do business and trade with our companies in Mexico. So there's a very specific role for the state government to play here. The private sector plays a key role, and they've done that, and they've done very well. But there's also a point where we need the governor's input and leadership and platform to say, hey, we're open, and that attracts business.
Are there contingencies in place should NAFTA undergo some sort of change?
Well, sure. What we trust is that we have a seat at the table with the White House as they look at this issue. The governor has been invited to different national platforms, big national platforms like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the Woodrow Institute, Mexico Center, and he's being recognized and acknowledged and tapped as that trade governor. The governor has been able to, as you said, being from the Republican Party and maintained a good positive relationship with the White House and also with Mexico. Those are not mutually exclusive. We can keep a good relationship with both, and the governor has been very strong on promoting that with Mexico, and we hope that that's an example of what other states can do as well, especially as we carry on with Sonora, that is our #1 and main partner within Mexico. But as we have the Arizona-Mexico Commission, that's exactly what that is, the Arizona entire Mexico Commission. So we want to move also beyond Sonora, because there's a lot of opportunity with Mexico.
One of the big headlines that came out of the summit was the port of Rocky Point.
Yes.
How close is that to being completed?
The port is about 50% done. This port was started by the previous administration in Sonora. It went through some trouble there and just was stopped for a little bit, but now they're continuing under the leadership of Governor Pavlovich. She has great relationships with her federal side as well, and that's what's helped speed up the port conversation. This is a great opportunity for the region, Lorraine, because they are going to be attracting hundreds of cruise ships into that region. What that means is we're promoting the two-nation destination. They can go to Rocky Point, unload the cruise ships there. Our people also can go down and catch the cruise ships there. But in the aspect of trade, Hermosillo, which is the main capital of Sonora, the capital of Sonora and main city, it's about 6 hours away from Rocky Point. Phoenix is 3 hours away from Rocky Point. So when they look at their supply for anything the cruise ships are going to need, from tablecloths to service to any of that, they're looking at us to do that. So this is a great opportunity for Arizona companies to be suppliers for this expansion of the port. And then we signed an MOU with Sonora about this. The governor is committing to work together to co-promote this cruise ship port and form working groups from transportation, tourism, and economic development of how we can push this. Sonora takes that document, goes to Mexico City and says, this is the agreement we have. Let's speed up the money that is already allocated for this project, because they need the federal input and finances to complete this project. But with the document that we signed last week, that's what they take over to say, we're getting there, let's push this money down.
Is the infrastructure in place, though, in Mexico and here in Arizona to sustain this type of commerce?
Great question. There are several points there. First of all, the port of Lukeville in Sonoita, which is the point that we cross to go to Rocky Point. We've invested millions of dollars on the Arizona side to widen the lanes once you cross into the U.S. side. Mexico sees that, and Sonora acknowledges that we've made an investment, and they need to make some investments on their side as well. The travel time to Rocky Point, it's over 2 hours on the Arizona side and a little less than an hour on the Mexico side. So the majority of the road travel is going to be on our side for Rocky Point. They have that investment to make, which is part of the request that they have for the federal government. These are the kind of agreements that the governors meet about and say, this is where we're at, how can we continue to push this forward?
What's about to happen in Arizona that suddenly there's this push, there's this economic strength that's really binational to create cargo and commerce that's going to be flowing freely across the border?
Sure. I think, again, it starts at the top with leadership of Governor Ducey and saying Arizona's open for business. This wasn't just a campaign slogan. It wasn't just something that we wanted to get people excited about. It's something that he's living day to day, and the administration is fully focused on that. I can tell you by being part of a senior staff that whatever we do, whatever lens that we look at, the entire situation is going to be about how do we create jobs? How do we improve workforce development? How do we improve education? How do we strengthen the livelihood of our citizens in Arizona? And that message is out there. The governor's out there promoting it in California and other states, even in Texas, winning projects over to come to Arizona because of the good business climate, low regulation that we've been tackling, and quite frankly, the resources that we have by having Sonora as our good partner and a neighbor in the entire country. All that is just positive messages. And then we also have the policy to back it up. That's a very powerful combination that we enjoy in Arizona. This is our time. This is Arizona's time. No question about it, and we're taking full advantage of it.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that concludes our program from the Arizona-Mexico border. Next week, the ripple effect should the Affordable Care Act undergo changes. For all of us at Arizona Public Media, I'm Lorraine Rivera. Thanks for joining us.